Morning, gang. How are you? How you doing today? All right. Welcome to the morning warm-up and good afternoon. It's morning somewhere, just not here. So we are now on issue 10 of the warm-up. Social distancing day for me, 36. What about you? You doing okay? All right. Washing your hands? You're good? Cool. Our guest today is Kevin Smith. We have a limited amount of time today, so we got to be done by a certain time because there's other streams that are following this one. So we're going to get right to Kevin very, very quickly. First of all, I want to thank everybody who tuned in for the tutorial. Hope you cats dug it. I had a lot of fun doing it. I also want to send out a big shout out to Joe Hamilton. He was the winning bid on the Creators for Comics auction that was benefiting the book industry charitable fund BINC. Joe bid $1,000 and he gets a portfolio review with me, personal one-on-one via Skype, whatever. We'll do that. So want to give a shout out also to my buddies, the Struts. To me, the world's greatest working rock and roll band at the moment. Struts have a stream on Sundays at 3 o'clock called Sunday Service. That's a tour poster I did for the Struts. I had to revamp it for their Sunday service there with their medical masks because we're all trying to be safe. So onward, let's get to Kevin. Also, if you have any questions for Kevin, I already have some banked up because you guys know the day before I'll always post on Twitter and Facebook. If you have any questions, leave them here. So some of those questions we'll be the first ones to be asked. If we have time, we'll get to some of yours. But if you have any questions, ask them. The guys at Marvel Central are gathering them for me, and they'll be texting them to me at some point. Now, I'd like to let you know, and it's fairly evident it's already happened. Kevin and I have been trying to get Skype to work properly for us. It is not being nice today. He just froze up on me. So give me a second. I'm going to try calling him again. Bear with me. It's just been a crazy Skype day. It's not happening. This is about the fourth or fifth time that he and I have been disconnected. Of course, I figured it would happen during the show, but let's try it again. I'm going to try. Let's see what happens here if I reboot Skype. Okay. One more time with gusto. Sorry, guys. Wait, do we have some love here? Do we have some Skype love? We do. All right, Kevin, take it off of mute. How's it going, man?
Hey, man, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great, brother. It's been a while since I've seen you. We've talked, but
It's been a damn minute. You look good, man. You look healthy. Quarantine good.
Listen, not as healthy as you, but I need my Kevin Smith hugs, man. It's been a while. At you, there's a lot.
We don't hug anymore, man. There's no more hugging in this
That's
world.
right. Oh, that's right. Yes, no hugging. Darn it. So, dude, what's going on, man? Listen, we have a lot of people who I'm sure are watching. I've been so surprised by the outpouring of love on the stream. We're now at episode 10. I'm a newbie to this kind of thing. You're a pro at this kind of stuff. But we got people from all over the world: India, Russia, Australia, you name it. They're either watching now, or they'll be watching later. But I'm so thrilled with the outpouring of good wishes and love, and you get a lot of that all the time. So, dude, the other thing is, every time I see you, or every time I talk to you, you've always got. It's not like just like, hey, what's the update on this thing you're working on? You've always got like 10 completely new things to tell me about. So let's start off with, what are you working on right now?
Right now, today we just launched that Kevin Smith Club, where we have I've been doing podcasts for since 2007. Mm-hmm. So we've got a back catalog that used to be on Stitcher, but we were building it before everything happened. We started building it last year, going on 4/20 we'll launch, and we didn't know we'd be in the middle of the pandemic. So we're doing that. I'm still working on finishing up Masters of the Universe, a series that I'm doing for Netflix and for Mattel, which is basically He-Man. We kind of exact classic story leaves off. So that's been an absolute blast. All the scripts are written, and Powerhouse Animation is animating right now.
Yeah, I got to
Let's see,
stop you on
what
that one for
else
a
are we up
second.
to?
I got to stop because that's the
Okay.
one. Whenever you talk about the stuff you're working on, that's the stuff where you start giggling like a little child.
Yes.
It hits that great
That one I feel
funny bone
good
for you.
about.
Yeah.
Well, what was really beautiful about it is like it allows us to kind of lean into my comic book roots and my comic book uh, heart, but we got absolutely our universe. Like kid, this is my Batman was number one.
Hey Kev,
I just
hate to tell you. I hope you can hear
felt
me.
like this was,
Kev, you're starting to break up.
I
Starting to break up. Ah, darn it. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna hang up on him.
Shakespeare.
Ah. He was making a Shakespeare comparison. I just hung up on him. We're going to try video one more time. If it doesn't work, then maybe we'll just go to an audio interview with Kevin. So, again, don't know what is happening, but it does.
The person who you're trying to reach is currently unavailable. Please leave a message.
See, I'm not making this up. Mm-mm. One more time. Dear Skype. Yeah, gonna get the recording again. All right. One more time video, then I'm going into audio. Hey, Kev.
You there?
I'm here, man. Yeah, you broke up in the middle of the He-Man stuff. If we lose picture again, I'm just gonna do audio. I'll call you back, and we'll just do it that way because clearly that this is an issue today, which is funny because the image right now is pretty clear. So maybe fingers crossed. So He-Man, you were saying?
So He-Man, Teddy, who's our exec at Netflix, he grew up watching He-Man. That's like his religion. So he said, just do me a favor. Like, I always felt like He-Man was about to get killed by Skeletor. I always felt these stakes were real. So just treat these characters the way I felt when I watched them as a kid. Like the stakes are real. Don't make jokes of it. Don't wink at the audience. Like, treat it like Shakespeare. So we did. We got to kind of go in, and you're talking about a Game of Thronesian level of intrigue and characters and IP and stuff. So it's been an absolute blast. Powerhouse Animation is animating right now. I've seen the first two animatics, and it is spellbinding. So that'll be on in early next year.
Can't wait, man. Did I ever tell you my He-Man story? I used to work at. I think I did. I used to work at FAO Schwartz, the big toy store, right? And in its heyday. But I was already older, and I was in my 20s when the He-Man thing really sort of hit. So it generationally missed me. So it's not a real sweet spot for me. But I used to see kids come in and they were crazy over He-Man. And there was a time where, we would have costume characters come in, and there was a He-Man costume, and it was like, this rubber muscle suit. And the guy wore this rubber He-Man mask, and kids loved it, right? And there was a line of kids to get autographs from He-Man on their toys, and this little tiny kid came over with their toy for He-Man to sign it, and He-Man sort of decided to stoop down instead of kneel down for the kid, and he stooped down, and his rubber head fell off right into the little kid's hands. And the kid just started screaming hysterically. And I lost Kevin, so I got no response for that. Anyway, that's a true story. I'm going to go to, sorry, Kev, we're going to go to audio only. This is just not happening today. All right, there we go. I'm so sorry, guys. Drop it in there, even with audio. I don't know if you guys can hear the ringing that I hear on my side. You never know with these streams.
Yellow.
Okay. All right, Kev, we're going to just listen to you. Sorry about that. I don't know how much about your He-Man story you got. But
I got him. He's in a rubber mask.
Yeah, and well, anyway, the punchline is that he instead of kneeling for the little kid, he bent over and the mask fell right into the little kid's hands, and he started screaming because he was holding the decapitated head of He-Man. But yeah, that was a fun day at FAR Schwartz. And
it's been. I'm here. We've fared better with He-Man than the guy in the plastic mask you're talking about. So far, so good with us. The cast is phenomenal. I've gotten to hear like Mark Hamill and Lena Headey exchange dialogue. Mark Hamill is our Skeletor, man.
Oh, I was just saying, hopefully Skeletor, great.
And Lena Headey plays our Evelyn. So like the two of them working together was absolute magic.
That's great.
Chris Wood is our titular character, our Prince Adam and our He-Man. He's fantastic. Sarah Michelle Gellar, she's our Tila. Stephen Root does an amazing Cringer. The whole thing has been fantastic to listen to. And I saw some tweet online. Somebody was like, with all the money you paid that cast, they could have gotten better animation or paid for better animation. But the cast is working for it. They're not getting overpaid. Like I hope I'm not talking out of school, but like they're doing it for a voiceover rate, man. But there's a lot of love for the characters, for He-Man and stuff. So a bunch of people jumped in. It's turned into something really special, man. Like when I first took it, I was like, this will be an interesting job. But now that it's coming to an end, I'm missing it because I made a lot of great family and friends during the process, and we turned in something really special, man.
That's awesome. Hey, listen, tell me about this movies thing that's going on.
In Los Angeles right now, we got this movies pop-up that we're going to be doing later in the year, like if we're ever all allowed to come out from quarantine, physical movies. Like it would only be around for like a couple months. The company that does it is called Saved by the Max, and they did a pop-up Saved by the Bell restaurant. They did a pop-up Good Burger from Nickelodeon. So they reached out and were like, what about doing a pop-up movies? And we were, naturally, I'm all for it, man. So they, right now, of course, we can't do it. Nobody's going out and no restaurants are open. But the folks that put it together, Saved by the Max, they work with this restaurant called Secret Lasagna. They came up with like, hey, let's do like fun, Happy Meals, like movie meals. They come in a box and there's a movies, messy lasagna sandwich and Hater Tots, which were featured in Jay and Silent Bob reboot, and then chocolate covered pretzels from Mallrats. And it comes with like an autograph inside and stuff. So all the money goes to a charity called No Us Without You, which goes to help feed people during the people that work in restaurants during the shutdown, during the coronavirus. So it's all for charity, but we turned on the faucet yesterday at noon. It's on Postmates exclusively just in Los Angeles. And like after it was the first 46 seconds, we had like 116 orders already. So they had to shut it down. Apparently we're only like the second organization that what did they do? Knocked Postmates offline. We had so much traffic hitting the LA side when we opened and stuff. So they, quickly they were like, we're sold out. So they're open today. Of course, they're open for the next, till April 26th, we're doing it. So from now until April 26th, if you're in Los Angeles, you can go to Postmates and you can totally order movies at Movies Pop-Up, it's called. And then later on this year, if you're in Los Angeles, you'll be able to sit down in a movies, and I'll be there for sure, man. Oh my Lord, because we're going to do vegan and non-vegan options, so everyone could go.
That's crazy. I was going to say, if you actually open the movies, it's like Silent Bob needs to be like the Ronald McDonald of your restaurant. Just like, Silent Bob's all over the country. Guys dressed as Silent Bob just at these movies.
You're not kidding, man. I just want to be a big suit that somebody could put on place to place, like one of those Disney characters. with
Right, right,
removable
right.
head and whatnot.
Right. With the mullet, it's probably it'll probably be the only character costume with a mullet, which is a glorious thing. So speaking of food, though, you are vegan, dude. You gave those of us that love you. You gave us a scare back in 18, in February of 18. Actually, more than 2 years ago at this point, right?
Yeah, it
You almost
happened.
you almost died on us, dude.
Yeah, I had the 2 year anniversary. Was February 26th. It was the day that we ended the Jay and Silent Bob Reboot Roadshow tour. Was the same day 2 years prior that I'd had the heart attack. I got very, very lucky. I was saved by a wonderful doctor named Dr. Mark Ladenheim, who pulled me out of it. But yeah, I had a what they call a widowmaker, which is the LAD, the artery that goes across the front of your heart, it was completely 100% occluded, meaning blocked up.
Yeah.
I only know it's called the widowmaker because my doctor told me while I was on the table right before he went in to put a stent in to open it up. And right, he goes, oh, we got to go in fast. It's what I thought. He goes, but I just want to tell you, he's going, you're a comic book guy, right? And I said, yeah, I like comics. And he goes, well, this heart attack you're having, they got a name for it. It's called the widowmaker. And I was like, why? And he goes, because in 80% of the cases of 100% occlusion, like you have right now, where the patient is 100% blocked, in 80% of the cases, the patient always dies. He's going, but you're going to be in the 20% because I'm good at my job. And he disappeared into my body and saved me, man. He reached up inside and put a stent inside my LAD, open it up so the blood could flow again. It was a damn miracle, man. But even as I was laying there on death's door, somebody was like, you like comic books, right?
Well, that's because you are a great ambassador of comics, Kev. But before we get into that, though, I mean, how much of again? Because I think this is good information. Did I lose
This
you?
is me calling in. No, yeah, answer that. That's me
Answer.
calling in.
Okay, hang on. All right.
This
Got
should
the
work.
video.
This should work better.
Okay, you think so?
I think so. Yeah.
All right, cool. So, and if it doesn't, we'll go back to old school. So, I think this is also important information for folks out there, to have. I mean, you've had a long-standing battle with your weight, as have I, right?
Yeah.
You seem to have really kicked it at this point. But how much of what was going on in your heart had to do with your lifestyle, your diet, and how much of it was also had to do with genetics?
A lot of it had to, it's kind of a 50-50 split. I have poor genetics to begin with. So, as much as I was packing myself with a high fat diet, meaty diet, cheesy,
Right.
milky diet and stuff. My dad died of a massive heart attack at age 67. And my mom has had 2 stents put
Wow.
into her heart. So it never occurred to me all this time that the heart could be my weak spot. I always assumed it would be diabetes because my dad and his entire side of the family are all diabetics. My dad was like an insulin taking diabetic my whole life. And so he
Right.
moved to pill management later, but still he was hardcore. So my mom was always like, you got to watch your sugar eating. And I never did. So I was always looking for diabetes, but it turned out it was the heart thing, man. So
The
it
heart
hit
thing.
me. I was 47 years old, bad diet at that point. And after the doctor pulled me out of it, my kid, Harley, who's been vegan like for 3 years prior to that, she was urging me to go vegan. I was in the hospital and the nutritionist was like, the 100% blockage means that you've got a pretty poor diet. You might think about trying plant-based. And my kid was there. She's like, yes, please, one of us. And my kid loves me to death. I know that much. But I also know she was like, if I could flip this guy, he's a huge get for the vegan community, man.
Yeah.
He'll keep talking about that. So she was smart and strategic. And so I told her, she was like, please, Dad, because she's a first world kid. She ain't got no trauma in her life. Nothing bad ever happened to her. Me almost dying was like the worst thing that ever happened. So she was like, please, you got to change. I said, look, I'll go vegan for 6 months. I said, I ate the way I wanted to my whole life and I almost died. I will now go vegan for 6 months, the least I could do and stuff. And that was over 2 years ago, man. I'm a vegan. I've been a vegan for over 2 years. Now, people get uptight sometimes and you're like, I'm vegan. They feel very challenged by that. I'm not telling anybody else to be vegan. Sometimes you're like, oh, I'm a vegan. And some people online are like, yeah, well, now I'm going to eat 3 times as much meat. And you're like, that doesn't correlate. And that's not going to hurt me. So, but when people ask me, they're like, why do you look different? How did you lose weight? Is it hard? That's the honest answer. I went plant-based. Like once my diet was green-based, you got to think about it logically. I hate vegetables. I hate them with a passion. It is not my favorite food, not even on my list of foods that I like to eat. But once you go vegan, like suddenly 75% of the things that you eat that put weight on are now out of your grasp. You can't eat them anyway. So instantly, weight starts falling off. I kicked it off by doing 2 weeks on this Ray Croni's all-potato diet, just sides it was called. So I ate potatoes for 2 weeks. If anybody ever wants to lose 15 pounds in 2 weeks, I swear this works for everybody. Potato is a natural diuretic. It's almost completely made of water. So on this diet, for 2 weeks, I could eat as many baked potatoes as I want. Couldn't fry them. Couldn't put salt on them, no butter, just literally a potato. You take it out the earth, you wash it, you bake it, and then you eat it. And you could have 20 a day if you want and stuff. And I was like, I love potatoes. I could do this diet. I'm standing on my head. Let's do it. And by day 2, I was like, I hate potatoes, man. What I like is mashed potatoes with the milk and the butter and stuff. Or, I like French fries when they take a potato and they make it go or put some ketchup on it and stuff. So suddenly you're not wanting to eat as many potatoes and stuff, but that's the only thing you're allowed to eat. And it comes down to a moment sooner or later, like on week 2, where I was like, I can have a potato or I can have nothing. And I think I'd rather have nothing right now. Right. So the diet also teaches you how to intermittently fast. As Americans, we eat far too much and far too often. And how I like control my weight now, and it's more about control because I dropped a bunch that I wanted to drop. How I maintain my weight loss is I will intermittently fast. There'll be whole days where I don't eat at all. And, there's a hunger pang that strikes me every day at 8:30 in the morning. I don't eat till noon anyway, so I always work through that hunger pain. And some days when you're busy, like you can make it. If you're a heavy person like I was and still am, I still have all stored fat all over my body, and that's just stored energy. Your body will live off itself. Some people will be like, no, it's going to eat your muscles. But it's like when you're heavy, if you skip a day of eating, guess what? You're not skipping a day of eating because your body is going in and pulling those fat cells apart, taking those nutrients out and stuff like that. So losing the weight came about from losing options, like suddenly not being able to have an ice cream sundae or not being able to eat like mashed potatoes with gravy. And then you just figure out what you can work within. For me, I was like, well, beans are vegan. I like beans. Peanut butter is vegan. That works and stuff. Chickpeas are vegan and stuff. And thankfully, we live in Los Angeles where they got a lot of great restaurants where they could take a vegetable, turn it into a meatball and trick you, man. It's pretty good. So that was the important part. So I went to the doctor. That's when I got done with the tour, right at the beginning of March, right before all the outbreak began and stuff. And got my 100% clear test. 2 years clear, man. My blood work is great and stuff. It's been, so far so good. But then, when everybody was, when people started talking about COVID and the quarantine and stuff, and the pandemic, naturally, first things you heard were old people. And then you heard kids. And I'm like, well, I'm neither old nor kid. So I guess I'll be fine. And then they were like high risk heart attack victims. And I was like, oh, no, now I'm a sad old demographic.
Yeah. But you know what though? I mean, you may have that sort of the genetic fault there, but I think seeing you again getting healthy like this, seeing you actually you're doing a lot of hiking too, right? You're taking daily walks and stuff like that, and keeping yourself. That's the other thing, right?
Yeah, they shut down Runyon Canyon, which is normally where I go walking, hiking. I mean, they call it hiking because it is a pretty steep thing, but it's just a glorified hill. I take the dog there, but they've shut it down because of the quarantine. So now I just go to the end of my street and walk all the way up this hill. It's a mile straight up to Mulholland Drive. It's a pretty decent walk.
It's a hell of a walk.
Yeah. What do
So,
you doing? Because you look good. You look like you look real tight, real trim. What have you been doing? What's your secret?
I've been seeing a nutritionist for a while, and it's been a slow, process, but getting there, feeling better, doing some exercise, that whole thing, just trying to be mindful of the whole stuff. Not eating, I can't eat the way you do right now, vegan. I don't know if I can go there, unless pushed, but just trying to eat better. That's really it, Also
Guy,
eating
the guy who I was in the trenches with in 1998, building like Guardian Devil and stuff. If I could go back in time and tell that guy one day, you're gonna have a nutritionist, Joe.
Well, listen,
He
it
would be
was it
like,
was either
"What? You're out of
it was either that or just die. You know what I mean? So I
And
just need
also,
somebody
by
on
the
the
way, this is what is the money for if not
yeah
that? Like
yeah
prolong our damn lives.
yeah. Well, the guy that I see is again, it's not even a money thing. I mean, it's actually reasonable. There's no pressure to come back once. So none of that stuff. It's just sometimes you just need a good coach. And he's a
Yeah.
really good coach, and he knows his stuff. So, but anyway, we're here to talk about you. So again, I've known you for years. We have a lot of history with Daredevil, which we'll cover. But man, when I think back on that guy who was writing Daredevil for us, and at the same time doing Dogma, and now looking at you, your film is in the Library of Congress, right? Clerks, your handprint is at Grumman's Chinese Theater, dude. I mean, do you pitch yourself? Do you go, wow, look at what I've
You know,
accomplished?
it's this simple, man. Like at a certain point, I pulled from the guy who I realized was my mentor, the person I most wanted to be like, and it's our old buddy Stan. Stan was a champion. He started as a writer, very specific job that everybody could identify.
Yep.
Stan Lee as a writer. Well, let's be honest, and that writing began long before, like Spider-Man and stuff like that. The first creation was Stan Lee himself, taking Stanley Lieber into Stan Lee. Stan Lee then goes on and creates comic books as a writer. Then he becomes an editor, and then an editor in chief, and then chairman emeritus, and then producer on movies. And then he moves beyond the very simple box that he was not placed in, but chose,
Yeah.
and diversified constantly. Stan was a jack of all trades and an absolute master of one of them. He built an entire industry. He built an entire comic book universe and stuff with all the help and a bunch of other creators as well, and artists. But then he kept it going forever because he diversified, and he'd be like, okay, now I'm just out there tub thumping for comics in general. I'm an ambassador for all things joyous. I am pop culture. When you look at me, you think of all the things that make you feel good in life. That's the guy I started wanting to be most like. So I stopped thinking ever about like, I want to be great at one thing. Like I knew I would never be a great filmmaker. So I was like, why not just taste it all and do everything, man? And that life of 26 years of like, let me try this, let me try this, let me try this, has spread me across a bunch of things that have kept me relevant, even though my movie career probably should have been over a long time ago. One of the biggest ones was what we did, was Marvel, was Daredevil, comics in general. Because, in 1995 with Mallrats, the opening credits, I had a bunch of cool artists like Joe and Jimmy did my cover for Jay and Silent Bob, the fake comic book cover, in Mallrats. From Mallrats forward, I had kind of established that, like, hey, I like these comic books at a time when people weren't really talking about that much. Because I staked a weird claim then, it gave me credibility as the world shifted closer and closer to a comic book culture, man. Like, I never made a comic book movie, Joe, as you know, and I never will. I don't have the talent. I don't have the patience. That I love to watch those movies, and I'll be honest with you, if they were ever like, come be in one of these movies, in a heartbeat, but make one of those movies,
Right.
that's where I become a fan again. That's where I resort back to the kid that my father took to a movie theater and was like, isn't this fun? Like, I get to be a fan too. I started as a fan, and I was lucky enough to become a filmmaker and stuff and a maker of things. But I remain a fan first, and I will go back to being a fan one day, just a member of the audience who doesn't create things and stuff. And Marvel movies, particularly, that's my happy place where I walk into that theater and I don't think like a director. I don't sit there and go like, you know what I would do? Never in a million years. I am 12 years old again, 9 years old again. So in that world where I don't even make those movies, people go, hey, what'd you think of this movie? Why? I didn't make, you shouldn't ask me. I'm not a foremost authority. Ask Chris Nolan. But why did they ask me? Because in 1995, they saw Stan Lee in Mallrats. Because in 1999, 98, 99, we did Daredevil. Because in the 2000s, Wizard would put me and you up on their top 10 list. I was gifted with this incredible credibility in the comic book community by folks like you who let me work with them. Like, I had no path into the comic book world. So, like, being welcomed in and seeking you guys out for the opening credits of Mallrats, and then, like, suddenly being able to work on something like Joe and Jimmy called me up and they were like, hey, we're going to do Marvel Knights. They're giving us stewardship of a couple titles, which was huge. You have to understand, Joe and Jimmy had their own comic book company, Event. They went off like Image and they were doing great. Suddenly they were going to be handed some Marvel characters to go play with, anything they wanted to do. I was never going to get a call for that. Nobody at Marvel was ever going to call me up and say, do you want to make comic books? Joe and Jimmy did that, man. Quesada was just like, Kevin always talks about Daredevil. He likes Frank Miller's Daredevil and stuff. And because of that, I got to write Daredevil. And now that it's over 20 years old at this point, I got roots in a community. People refer to me like I'm a professional, which like wells my eyes with tears, because this was a field that I never imagined I'd be anywhere near in any fashion except as a fan. But because early on, I just wore that stuff on my sleeve. Like, I love comic books because Brody in Mallrats loved comic books, because I did the Marvels, Mutants and Monsters interviews with Stan Lee, because like in Chasing Amy, my characters were comic book inkers and pencilers and writers and indie comic artists and stuff. Even though I wasn't from that world as anything more than a fan, I now have credibility when I shouldn't. Like, if I was sitting outside of pop culture and Kevin Smith, I would be like, why would you ask him? He's never made a good movie, let alone a comic book movie. Who cares what he thinks about Spider-Man? But they do for whatever reason. And that is everything to me. And that's kept me alive professionally for longer than I should have been alive. This is my 26th year of being that Kevin Smith. I've been that Kevin Smith longer than I was the Kevin Smith before Clerks at this point, man. That's a blessing. That's a gift. And a lot of that has to do with the comic book community, man.
Well, Kev, listen, I've told you this many times. I've said it many times. I've never said it on my stream here because it's relatively new. But people talk about, comics were basically dead in the middle to late 90s. The industry was almost completely wiped out, and Marvel had a real resurgence. And the industry had a real resurgence, and people like to put a flag in the sand and say, this is why, this is when, this is who, this were the books, this was the company. The truth of the matter is, to me, that the flag in the sand starts with you, and the reason is because there are a whole generation of people in the movie business, in the literary world, who grew up with this stuff, who were of an age that they were ready to create stuff in comics, but nobody really wanted to take that plunge in a very, very big way. And in a lot of ways, it's also understandable, right? So let's say you're a well-known Hollywood director, you've had some movies of note and really great commercial success, and now you're being asked. Somebody says, "Hey, come and write a comic book." So you're literally jumping from the ocean into the little pond, right? There's a vast difference between those two worlds, especially
just my speed right there.
Right. So the risk with that is that you've made it in the ocean, but if you fail in the pond or in the small stream, it doesn't look great, right? And so it's a little bit risky. And fans are hardcore, right? They're very unforgiving, man. You got to nail it. and you took the plunge, and you did it, and you were the first one to really do it, and then that sort of opened the doors, and people said, "Wow, Kevin Smith did it." Not only did he do it, but that small contingency of fans, which is small compared to the contingency of movie fans, they're so rabid that their word of mouth has driven people to the book, has also helped Kevin's career, notoriety. It's a whole other fan base that's really hardcore and will follow him forever. So you taking that plunge to me is the flag in the sand that said this is when comics came back. This is what brought comics back, because
you know how I got there? Why I was like, oh my God, that would be fun to do. Who was the first one who worked in, as far as I know, who worked in movies who then did comic books?
I don't know. Who are you thinking?
He's a Marvel guy. He's Jeff.
Oh, Loeb. Yeah.
Remember? Loeb
that's right.
had done Teen Wolf and
That's
Commando.
Right. That's right.
His name was on movie posters.
Yeah.
And then he did Challengers of the Unknown, which blew my mind.
Right.
Also, remember what's his name?
Bob Gale came in for a little bit too. Remember Bob came in for a few Batman issues, right? Yeah.
Yes. And remember Sam Hamm?
Of course, yes.
Sam Hamm and Warren Scarn wrote Batman, the movie,
right.
Tim Burton's movie. And then Sam Hamm did like Detective Annual 500 or Detective Number 500. It was a big issue. And I remember thinking, like, movie people doing comic books. Oh my God, if I was ever in the movie business, I would do the same thing. So I saw people go before me. When I got into the movie business, I was always like, I want to do a Jeff Loeb, man, where I want to do my movies and I want to write comic books too.
But also, I think the big difference between those guys is that even though they were in the business and they created properties of note, they weren't personalities as you were. You were not only the writer, director, but you were an out there personality, right? Hawking your products. You were Kevin Smith, right? So at that time when Jeff was writing those books, I don't think if someone saw Jeff at a convention that they would know, oh, that's Jeff Loeb from the movies, right? Or Sam Hamm, or the same thing with Bob Gale. Now, Bob was a better known name, right? Because of Back to the Future. Totally. But he only came in for a little bit. Then he came back later on to do some Spider-Man stuff for us. But you were really out in front of this thing, promoting it, putting your name on the line, and I'll always love you for that. But also moving forward, you bring up Stan Lee as your sort of your guide, your mentor, the roadmap that you followed. And when Stan passed, there's all this stuff out there. Who's the next Stan Lee? No one's the next Stan Lee. Okay, there is no successor to Stan. Stan is a singular, unique human being, just like Walt Disney was, and people of that ilk. But when it comes to an ambassador of comics like Stan, when people say, who do you think it is? There's only one name that comes to mind, and that's you. And I know we're spending a lot of time here sort of kissing each other's butts, but I have to thank you because you're always out there, no matter what it is that you're doing, no matter what medium you're working in, you're always out there just waving the flag of comic books and the beauty of our industry. So I just want to thank you for that. I want to move on from that, but I want fans out there who aren't aware of your history, who might be coming into this new, of exactly what you mean to the industry, what you mean to me, because I wouldn't be doing the stream, I wouldn't be still here at Marvel if you hadn't said yes to doing Daredevil. We'll talk a little bit more about Daredevil. I do want to talk about Stan Lee because you and I. Go ahead.
Before we go forward, you said something before because we're doing like number one, thank you, but number two, we're just going back to Secret Origin stuff. I can draw a line from the first Avengers movie right back to Joe. And it was, I remember in Los Angeles, Joe, came out and we went to have lunch at the Ivy. And it was when I think was coming out here or something like that. I think when I first moved out here, 2001, when we were making Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, shortly thereafter, Joe was in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back delivering Marvelous Pizza in 2001.
You can say me, Kev. You mean me, right? You can say you. All right. You're talking about me, it's all about here.
Yeah, the Joe was a good guy.
Sadly, this Joe really stinks. This is a lousy version of that Joe. Right.
But it's like 2001, maybe 2002. People will figure it out based on how the story ends. And we're sitting at the Ivy, and I said, "What'd you do today?" And Joe goes, I met with Joss Whedon, and I said, "Oh, the Buffy guy. So he likes comic books. He wants. I think he's going to write a comic book for Marvel." And I was like, "Get out of here!" And I got excited because there was a guy, like somebody, like doing it like I did. Like, oh my God, somebody's coming over, like from the other side, and it was a guy that made sense. Where I'm like, oh, he's like the better version of me and stuff like that. So that beginning with the book that you guys did there, we can draw that right to him being on the set of the Avengers, man. Like that's the door.
Yeah, I mean, I again, Joss is a brilliant talent, and when he agreed to do stuff for us, I mean, I called him originally in 2000 when I first got the editor-in-chief job. He was one of the first people I called, and he was just in the middle of I'm not sure if it was a season of Buffy or Angel, and he just couldn't do it, but he wanted to. And then when I caught up with him again, I caught him at a perfect spot. He had a down period where he was able to crank out some X-Men scripts, and it was just it's a classic X-Men story. It's an evergreen. So let's talk about Stan, because it was 2 years ago, I think last week, where you and I with Stan, we did that thing live at the Paley Center, which was one of where are you going, Kev? You're leaving me? Okay. Which was
it's a ring that Stan gave me, and it's engraved. You could see it inside.
It's awesome.
There's his name, and it says to Kevin from Stan Lee. It's a fat man on Batman ring. I married Stan Lee when he gave me this ring.
We both have tremendous amount of love and affection for the guy, and miss him tremendously. But I was lucky enough. We were doing this thing for the Hero Initiative, and I was lucky enough to get Stan to agree to do a live interview at the Paley Center. It was scheduled to be like an hour. I mean, we probably went 2+. He was dynamite. And when I said to Stan, "Hey, you mind if Kevin Smith comes on and does the intro?" He's like, "Kevin, I love Kevin," and he went on and on and on. People forget you started the Stan Lee cameo thing, right? That was the first time you ever did a cameo was in your movie?
There's technically, well, it was that Eric Roberts movie, the horror movie, it was The Ambulance or something like that. Somebody there's a movie where Eric Roberts works at Marvel Comics, and Stan has a scene as Stan Lee. Okay. And they show a version of the bullpen. It's pretty fascinating. Let me see. So, and also, of course, the trial of the Incredible Hulk. Stan would pop up. Yeah. The TV movie. So, with us in 1995, I'd written the script for Mallrats. Jim Jacks was the producer. He's the key. He's how I got to Stan. I wrote the scene not for Stan, but for like a comic book guru. Same scene, but not Stan specifically. So when Jim read the script, he goes, "Who's this supposed to be, this comic book guy?" I said, "That would be like a Stan Lee." And he goes, "Why don't you just write it for Stan Lee?" I was like, "I don't know Stan Lee." And he goes, "I do." And I was like, "Hollywood is good. They know each other." So I said, "How do you know Stan Lee?" He goes, "Ever since I got into this business, I sought Stan out because I grew up reading Marvel Comics." Jim was a big believer that comic books were going to be fertile material for movies beyond Batman and Superman. And he's like, "I don't understand why Marvel can't get their movies right and stuff." He's going, "But I go out once a month with Stan to have lunch at Dan Tana's, and I just talk about the bullpen. I just talk about Jack. I just talk about whatever and stuff." So he goes, "I'll bring it up to him. Why don't you rewrite the scene for Stan? I'll take it to him." So I rewrote it as Stan, and Jim brought it to dinner at Dan Tana's, which is a restaurant, the old-timey restaurant out here in Los Angeles. And Jim called me that night when he got back from dinner. I was still in Jersey at the time. And I said, "What did he say?" He goes, "He wants to talk to you tomorrow." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Did he say he'll do it?" And he goes, "Well, first he wants to talk to you." I was like, "What did he say?" And he goes, "You talk to him." And I said, "Tell me." And he goes, "Well, he read the scene, and the first thing he said was, 'Jim, I would never say this shit.'" And so he was like, "All right, you got to talk to him to make sure that he's understands that it's a fictional version of Stan that he's going to be playing." So I said, "All right." So Stan calls me up, and he goes, "Hi, this is Stan Lee." I said, "I know who you are. I know that voice." I said, "Oh my Lord, how are you? I've seen you at so many comic book shows. You're wonderful." And he was like, "Thank you." I said, "Thank you for even talking. I heard you read the scene." He goes, "I did, and I just want to talk to you about it." He goes, "In the scene, you have me talking to this character, and I'm playing me, and I'm saying that there's a girl that got away. I'm romanticizing the one that got away. And he goes, that's fine. And I would love to do that. But if I go into your movie as me and talk about the girl that got away, the girl I got at home will lock the door and not let me in the house. And I was like, oh, really? He's going, yeah, I can't do that to Joni. I will never forget one of the first conversations I had with Stan. One of the first things he said to me was, I can't do that to Joni. So I said, well, I mean, well, we can scale it back. He goes, this is all I'm suggesting, and I hope you're okay with this. I don't want to take over writing your movie. But in retrospect, I should have let him do that. But he goes, how about this? There's a scene where I tell somebody afterwards that I was only kidding. Now, right away, I wanted him to be my grandfather. I was like, that's so sweet. Like, he was like, I don't want to hurt Tony's feelings. But Stan also got himself a second scene in the movie. He was clever. He was strategic. So he came in and we did the second scene where like he sees TS and he goes, oh, I was only kidding. He bought it and stuff. And I met him that day on the set after seeing him at conventions and whatnot, seeing him speak, listening to that voice my whole life, hearing him on Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, reading him from his soapbox in the pages. And, you know, you always hope that the people you love or look up to or admire or your heroes are going to live up, be the people that you see them as. And 100%, 110%, he was everything. That was the beauty of Stan Lee, and that's definitely something I've taken from him, and I take in every day of my life. Everybody who meets him is looking to meet their version of Stan Lee, and he delivered it each and every time. It didn't matter. I saw him after Joni passed away. When we were putting Stan was getting his handprints, thanks to the good folks at Legion M. They did this campaign where Stan was getting his handprints in the cement at Groman's Chinese Theater, like 2 years before me and Jay did. So I got to host the event and whatnot, be the MC, and Chadwick Boseman was there, and Todd McFarlane and stuff like that. The list goes on. So Stan was there. This happened a week, maybe less than 2 weeks after Joni passed away. And so I was honestly thinking that he's going to cancel, and rightfully so. He lost his best friend. All of his meaning in life was Joni. So I assumed that he would cancel. He did not cancel. He showed up, and he put that sweater and the glasses and the character of Stan Lee on and delivered for everybody in that audience and everybody watching around the world as they saw someone they loved, one of us, getting put in the cement in a good way. In Los Angeles, man. And as he got up to speak, like it wasn't a broken man. He was delivering the Stan Lee, even though inside he was dying. He delivered the Stan Lee, man. It's like that. I'll never forget. And I take that with me every day of my life. You can't ever meet somebody and like, oh, I was in a bad mood. Like, they got to meet the version of you that they've seen, that you've sold them your whole life. Yeah. He did. And he was always ready to say hi to people, man, even when he was exhausted.
Yeah, and not only that, I think Stan clearly understood that these people that wanted to meet him, right? It's something that I know you keep this in mind, I keep this in mind as well. These are the folks that pay our rent. These are the folks that have bought our product in the past, enjoy our creativity, or don't enjoy our creativity, but just want to meet and say hello, or whatever it may be. You know, so you want to try to give each one of those people, you know, at least the kindness you could possibly give them in that, you know, in that small amount of time. Going back to that Paley Center thing, you know, you talk about Stan putting his handprints in. If you recall, weeks before that, Stan was very, very ill, right? I think he had pneumonia. But nobody really knew how ill he was because he had canceled. He never canceled convention appearances, and he'd started to cancel some. And we were all sort of really, really, really worried about his health at that time. He rebounded, right? But 2 weeks before the Paley Center, he's canceling stuff, and I'm like, well, this isn't going to happen. So we're prepping to just cancel, and he didn't cancel. And when he got there, he was in great spirits. You know, you could hear his breathing he was having a little harder time breathing. But he went on stage and he started to pick up, and he became Stan, and he got into the questions, and he was funny, and he talked about Joni in such great loving terms. And it was a great great afternoon there. As we were leaving, his handler said to me, I just want you to know, Stan had a collapsed lung but wanted to be here for you, wanted to do this so badly, and wanted to be here for you and for Kevin and everybody. So he really sort of rallied as best as he could, and you know, they started feeding him hamburger and red meat and stuff that would really sort of pick up his system. And man, you could not tell that the guy had a collapsed lung, especially a man of his age at that moment. He was on fire. He was so funny and so wonderful. And again, I don't think we could talk enough about how much he's been to you, to myself, but we're being selfish here. How much he's been to anyone within reach of his words, within reach of his voice, within reach of his of seeing him on screen. He's always been Stanley. He's that guy that, you know, I read his words for the first time in a soapbox, and I used to say that Stan had a mutant power. His mutant power was that those soapboxes were, what, I don't know, 50, 100 words, whatever they may be. You felt like he was talking directly to you, not to anyone else, not to the kid who was reading the same soapbox right next to you, feeling the exact same thing. Stan had that mutant power. He's talking to me. He knows me, you know? And then when you meet him for the first time, right? You know that old saying, you don't want to meet your heroes, right? Don't meet your heroes. I happen to agree with that. A lot of times they don't live up to your fantasy of what they are. Stan lived up to it. The minute I heard the voice, I'm like, that's Stanley. And then he says, how you doing, Joey? And he shakes your hand, and you know this, Kevin, and he puts a hand on your shoulder, and you're just like, adopt me, please. Right? And he's always been that way. You know, when me and my buddy Jim McLaughlin went to visit him, it was always, come on in, guys, come on in. Even in waning health, he was always warm. He was always willing to talk to us. He's always willing to gossip about comics and talk about the old days, stuff that will never, you know, leave these walls. But it was wonderful. It was wonderful to be with him when we had him, and you and I, you know, are very, very blessed that we had somebody like that in our time to actually be with and get to know. So Kev, so we're you know, we have a limited amount of time here. So let me ask you really quickly. I have Jimmy coming on Wednesday. I spoke to Jimmy because I had a feeling we might be running a little bit long, and I asked him if we run into a part 2, would he mind shifting to the next episode? He said absolutely, anything for Kevin. So if you could do a part 2, I'd like to do a part 2 of this, and then we could talk about Daredevil, because we've got about 20 minutes, and I don't think it's gonna be enough to talk about, you know, Daredevil and that whole Marvel Knights era. So maybe folks come back, but before you come back, Kevin, can you come back? Can you do Wednesday, let's say? You froze up? You freeze up? You there?
No, you did, but you're back.
I'm asking.
Yeah, I'll be back.
Can you do Wednesday?
Talk about. We didn't get deep into Daredevil. That is the one. Over the last few years, that's the question I get asked probably the most, which is like, when are you going back to Daredevil?
Yeah, when you froze up there,
do Daredevil.
When you froze up there, just said that
we can have a whole conversation about that.
Okay, we might be on a delay right now. So if you could do Wednesday. We'll do Wednesday, and Jimmy we'll do Friday with Jimmy, hopefully. So we'll figure out a time. We'll put that out there. But what I want to do is, we have a little bit of time, and we had some fans that chimed in with some questions. So I want to hit you with some questions, because they were kind enough to put them in last night. So question number 1 comes from RP67 Buff Piezian. Kevin, do you miss living in Jersey?
Do I miss living in Jersey? Absolutely, there are times. I still have the comic book store there, Jane, Silent Bob's Secret Stash, and we still have the office there. View Askew offices are there. And whenever I get to Jersey, whenever I'm flying in, I'm always like, oh man, like, this is home. This is the motherland.
Right.
I'm good for about 5 days, and then I'm okay to go. I love the state, always will. It's home to me. It made me who I am and stuff. But my version of New Jersey is now broken up. Like, my dad's dead.
Yeah.
My mom lives down in Florida. My sister lives in Austria. My brother lives in Florida and stuff. So, you know, my friends are still there. So Brian and Walter, the Stash, are there and stuff. But Jason Mewes is out here. It's just, you know, as Jersey was all those people, and as all those people scatter, it's not like I got to be on the land mass of New Jersey, but I love being there, and I love being from there. More importantly, man,
Yeah.
It's such credibility in the world, and it really is a character builder.
Well, yeah,
Love it.
like, also you have to take great pride in the fact that if someone asks, name 3 people from Jersey, the Boss, Bon Jovi, Kevin Smith, right? Top 3.
If I get in there, that is amazing.
Of course you get in there.
Yeah.
I mean, Bruce is first. Bruce is first. Got to get Bruce.
I would say Bruce, Bon Jovi, Danny DeVito, Jack Nicholson, Tony Bennett. I think Lady Gaga's from New Jersey too,
Is she really?
isn't she?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Thanks.
All right, then you're fourth. You're fourth.
As long as they remotely remember me, I'm fine being on the list.
Cool. All right, let's move on. What do we got here? Okay, from Jordan D. White. Oh, this kid Jordan D. White is a punk. He's a total punk. Actually, he's an editor at Marvel. Will we ever see Randall Graves again?
Yeah. Right now, I'm writing the Mallrats sequel, Twilight of the Mallrats, and when that's done, I go back to writing Clerks 3, and that's all Randall's.
Wow.
It's all about Randall surviving a heart attack. Where did I get that idea?
There you go. Got a little bit of life to write about it. All right, here we go. Lance Stanford, movie scripting versus comic book scripting.
Movie scripting much easier.
Good.
Movie scripting way easier for me if you're writing the script, which if you're directing the script you're writing, which I tend to do. That's very easy because then you're just writing down all the dialogue and the descriptive passages about what's happening and stuff like that. I keep them incredibly threadbare because that's in my head. We'll take care of that on set. It's very much just a rough blueprint with the dialogue being the most important part. Comic book scripts, though, whatever you want to see in the frame, since I'm not the artist, I'm just the guy with the words. If I want to see something in a panel, on one panel of 8 on a single page of 20 or 22, I have to communicate every single one of those. If I want a cup here, is there a broken egg there? Is a window half open? I can't assume that, say Joe is the artist, Joe is going to be in my head and know what I meant when I said this and where the staging is. So you tend to write a lot more. My first Daredevil script, though, was a true Marvel method. It was really one-page breakdown of what the issue was going to be. Joe took the breakdown and drew it into 22 gorgeous pages, and then I went back and scripted on top of it with way too many words that blocked up all the pictures.
We'll talk about that next episode. Yeah, I actually have a folder with all those scripts
and screen.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Comic book writing. Comic book writing much more involved than simply screenwriting.
Right. Yeah. What I was saying is that I have a binder. I save everything, and I have a binder with all those scripts, all the notes, and everything. So I'd have to dig it out. But someday, I'll put this stuff out there for the public to see because I think it's really, really interesting. Let's see. The Unworthy Alex at A. Smith Peterson. What does a project need to have for you to be interested in it? Let's talk about, let's say, well, I don't know, movie, comic book project. What does it take for you to be interested in something?
I mean, generally it's because it comes from me, because it's something I want to self-express. One of the reasons, like we talked about before, comic book movies and stuff, and I'm like, I don't want to make those. I'm not talented enough. There's a number of reasons why I don't want to make it. But one of the chief reasons is there are very talented people, filmmakers who want to make comic book movies and can blow it out the water. You see them all the time. John Watts doing a great job with Spider-Man, the Russo brothers, the list goes on and on. There are many people willing to make a comic book movie out there, particularly in a culture where those movies make a lot of money now. Nobody out there wants to make a Kevin Smith movie. And if I don't do it, it doesn't happen. So I always lean toward what I want to do. So as much as I've for 25 years, Joe knows, 26 years I've been talking about, oh, this comic would make a great movie. This comic would make a great movie. And never once was I I'm going to do it. Even when I got hired to write Superman for Warner Brothers, I backed into that job. And it wasn't like I was going to direct it or anything like that. So yeah, it's, for me, it's got to come from in here. That's why I make, nobody clamoring Jane Silent Bob reboot get made. But like I was like, well, if I can make it in this really thin path, and I know there are enough fans and stuff, and I got a bunch of famous friends, maybe we could pull it together. Like that's what I lean toward first. And when I look at other stuff, like look at comic book or comic book movies, that's for me to unwind and be a fan. I never look at that stuff as like, here's a potential thing for making. And it could be for others. But for me, I got a lot of things I want to say before I drop dead.
Yeah, and there was the Green Hornet too. Don't forget that one.
Yeah, oh my God, we can talk about that in a few days.
Yeah. So let's see what else we have here. We've got a question from Bradley. This is Bradley T. I'd like to ask Kevin, if you're given a chance to write a series, which are the 2 characters that you'd want to work with without hesitating? And do you have an artist in mind or an artist you'd love to work with?
Let me see. I mean, I got to play with a bunch of Marvel toys when we did Guardian Devil, and then I also did Spider-Man, Black Cat, The Evil That Men Do, and then of course the unfinished. That's before I make up any answer, right. I would finish Daredevil Target, a book I started how many years ago, Joe?
Years ago, yeah.
It's coming up literally on 2 decades. Glenn Fabry art and a story that still has.
Right. Cool.
Convince the other guy on camera to come back, and because boy, when he was in charge, I was making good comics. Let me tell you something. That was the beauty of our relationship. Is Joe literally directed the Daredevil comics. Like he framed it. He created interesting shots. He would do stuff like I'd write 20 pages of dialogue for 1 page of comic with balloons everywhere, and he would find ways to like lay it out and stuff. He's going to be a great director when he finally gets off his ass and directs, man. But like, because he's been doing it since we were working on Daredevil.
Thanks, Ben. Let's see. I'm putting these 2 questions together because they're pretty similar. Will you 2 ever work together in a comic again? I would love it if you do. And that was from Zach Goya. And then BM Bitrick, a Daredevil reunion might be just what the industry needs right now. So, Kevin, look, I mean, I think you and I, we have one last Daredevil story that we've had in our back pocket for a long time, and we've played fantasy baseball, football, or comic book, whatever you want to call it. That someday we get to it. I think someday we will. But I mean, the one thing at least I know for sure, the day that you're willing, you and I are going to work together again. I want to work with you again on anything. So let's figure what that thing is. What do you say?
Number one, I'm all for it. B, I just want to point out that like, I've got Joe's artwork hanging all over my house, particularly from like our Daredevil stuff. So in our Daredevil run, not only did we have Daredevil, who of course went on to have an entire run of Netflix series, we had Natasha Romanoff was a main character. We had Dr. Stephen Strange was a main character. And our villain was Mysterio. Like all of the properties, all the characters right now that are like in the movies and stuff, those were the characters that we played with in Guardian Devil. So I would love to go back to the Marvel Universe and play with characters again, particularly side by side with you.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Well, let's see what happens. With both of us, it's always a matter of time, right? Time. But I'd love to do it. All right, I got one more question here. This comes from another punk, Donnie Cates. Donnie Cates asks, he's begging Kevin if he can get some of his comics on the shelves in the background of your new Mallrats movie. Yes, Joe, I'm begging. This is where I am now.
In a heartbeat, I help out Donnie Cates. I read an article about him recently where in Austin, I guess, Texas, that's where he gets his comics. At his comic book store, he paid for everybody's month of comic books in the reservist box. I thought that was so classy. I called up Mike Zapsik, who used to be on Comic Book Men, our AMC show. He runs the stash with Walter. And I said, hey, man, do me a favor, clear the reservist box. Like, just everybody that's got books in there, package them up, send them out to people. Man, that's the least we could do in all this. And I pulled that idea from him. So he is more than welcome to have his books in the comic book store in Mallrats.
Cool. And actually, we just got one sent in here. Hold on. So this will be our last one.
Okay.
This is from Fanjecture. Will we ever get a reboot of Comic Book Man?
Oh, that'd be lovely. Look, I can't believe, honestly, we got 7 seasons out of that show. Like, I every year I couldn't believe AMC renewed it. They were just crazy drunk with that Walking Dead money, I guess, where they were like, "Go ahead, make it rain for the comic book men." And to get 7 seasons, the only thing we missed, like 3 episodes away from doing 100, and that's like an arbitrary round figure. It's not like anybody would have made any more money and stuff because they don't syndicate it. But just to be like, we made 100 episodes, but we had 97 episodes of my friends hanging out in New Jersey, and it also brought me back to Jersey all the time to shoot there at the store and the wraparounds. So I can't believe it even existed. Can it happen again? I mean, we live in reboot culture now. But they better go fast because all of those guys are getting old, including me. We're comic book old men is what the next one will be called.
That's great, man. Hey, listen, brother. We're gonna get going now because we gotta make way for the next stream that's coming in. I will buzz you once I sign off here, and we'll figure out a time for Wednesday. Also, thanks to Jimmy because he was gonna be on Wednesday and. Just gracefully just said, hey, absolutely anything for Kevin. So he's moving his date. But I also know he's got a crowdfunding effort going right now. I don't have the name of it in front of me, but guys, go to Jimmy's Twitter site, Twitter handle, and check it out. He's got some crowdfunding happening there with my buddy Dave Johnson as well. So apologies, Jimmy, for next week. Kevin, I will see you for this Wednesday. Kevin, I will see you this Wednesday, hopefully. Call you in a few minutes. Let me just say bye to everybody who's come on here, and I will.
Marvel.
What was that?
Make mine Marvel.
You got it, brother. We're going to talk about Daredevil on Wednesday. Kev, thanks, man. Talk to you later. Hey, guys. So hope you enjoyed that. Sorry about the technical glitches. It made us run long a little bit, but Kev is great as always. Love the guy. Thank you. Like I said, next episode will be Kevin again. We'll go into Daredevil at length. It'll give us a lot of time to discuss those early days at Marvel Knights, how Kevin came to Marvel Knights, how Jimmy and I played good cop, bad cop with him, and it worked for a little bit, and also how those scripts came in and the incredible deadline pressures and things that were going on at the time. So thank you again. Love you guys. And as always, we will be continued. So wash your hands, kiss your loved ones, stay indoors if you can, and I will see you in the funny books.